The Quantum Ranger from Power Rangers Time Force is by far one of the coolest Power Rangers ever to exist. But exactly what happened with his Morpher, and exactly how did Eric end up acquiring it? Because it's not like any of the Chronomorphers that the Power Rangers Time Force main team actually use. So let's dive in with the history of the Quantum Morpher. Hello everybody and welcome to Level 5, I'm your host Level 5, and on this channel we talk all things movies, TV shows, video games and comic books, and today we're going to be diving into some of the history and explain the Quantum Morpher. So the Quantum Morpher is used by Eric Myers of the Silver Guardians to become the Quantum Ranger. It is a red and black Morpher, and it looks completely different to the Chronomorphers. But why is that exactly? Well, originally it was lost in prehistoric time, and it was hidden in something called a quantum controller box, which kind of looked like some form of box that someone could slot their arm into. It was later discovered in an archaeological dig by a team, and that's of course when Eric Myers started fighting for it. Now, design-wise, it's more rectangular than oval shape, and it's got a few buttons on it, which actually do change throughout the series, because sometimes it was the Super Sentai one, and sometimes it was the Power Ranger one, which is fine. It's red and black, and really does stand out compared to the other 6 Ranger Morphers we have in the roster. So, when it gets recovered by Eric and he eventually slots his arm into the controller box, it dawns upon his wrist. Now this Morpher is somewhat older than the Chronomorphers and is less sophisticated, not only by design but also by some of its functions. Let me explain. So first things first, as we know, the Chronomorphers need a DNA imprint, hence why Wes was picked to use the Red Ranger Morpher, because obviously his relation to Alex. The Quantum Morpher isn't anything like that. Instead, it utilizes voice recognition software, hence why we have this whole episode where a bad guy mimics Eric's voice. And why there's no button needed to be pressed to actually morph, it just requires Eric to use the activation command of Quantum Power.
Quantum power! Quantum Ranger!
Now with that being said, he can use it to contact the other Rangers by connecting it to the Chronomorphers, but it's the only time one Ranger will contact another Ranger in Time Force where a hologram isn't used. As we know, when Wes or any of the other main Time Force Ranger team communicate with each other, they have a hologram which appears on their Morpher. The Quantum Morpher doesn't have that though, it is literally just a communication device via audio, which obviously does, change things up. We also know that it is a lot easier to transfer the abilities from the Quantum Morpher from one person to another, as at the end of Time Force, Eric's Morpher gets passed to Wes after he enables it, and obviously Wes uses it in the final battle, allowing him to use the Quantum Defender and summon the Q-Rex as well. Now, of course, when he does officially, the team officially does defeat Rancic, it then does get returned back to Eric, and making it so the Quantum Morpher can literally be in anyone's possession. It's not solely relying on one person's DNA. But the question is, how exactly did it actually end up in the prehistoric time period? Well, when the Time Force were actually experimenting with time travel, in the early experiments, it sent the quantum powers and the Q-Rex Megazord throughout time itself, and it was lost within the time travel experiment. Specifically, it landed in the time period that we would later know Jurassic period. So it actually sent over 150 million years in the past. Now, of course, it was in its original box form. That's why it was able to be protected over all those millions of years until it was found in the dig. The Quantum Morpher itself must have been known throughout Time Force history and, dated in records or somewhat, because when it was actually found, Rancic it knew what it was and knew of its legacy and wanted to acquire it himself to gain its abilities. So somewhere down the line, when they tested the time travel abilities that they had in hand, the Time Force must have logged it down or noted it down somewhere for it to actually have somewhat of a legacy that even Rancic knew. It's really interesting to think about that if the Quantum Morpher and the Curix Zord was never lost in time, then the Power Rangers Time Force that we know could have been very, very different. They could have looked more like the Quantum Ranger, because as you know, his suit design is just slightly different to Wes's Red Ranger. We could have had a whole team of Quantum Rangers. Now quickly, let's end the video with talking about exactly what the Quantum Morpher can actually do. So, of course, with voice command, all Eric has to say is Quantum Power, and it will morph Eric into the Quantum Ranger himself. With that, Eric, of course, gains the abilities to, one, be a Ranger, but with the Quantum Defender, which is a blaster that has a Saber mode, and a very cool looking blaster with that. And then, of course, it has the ability to command the Curix, which is a big dinosaur thing with two massive cannons, which has a Megazord mode. And Eric can do all of the commanding via the Morpher, which is interesting because he's one of the only Rangers out there who doesn't actually go into his own Megazord. It has no cockpit, it's all voice command, which goes back to my previous statement. If we had a whole team of Quantum Rangers, and we didn't lose the Quantum Morpher in time, we could have a whole team of Rangers that never once stood in their Megazord, never once entered a cockpit of any kind. We could have had a whole team of Rangers commanding their Zord/Megazord via voice command, which honestly, I know that sounds a bit daft, but it'd actually be kind of interesting to see that. Anyway, that's the Quantum Morpher explained. When it comes to other morphers, weapons, Zords, Rangers themselves, etc, etc, do let me know if there's anything that you'd like me to explain and dive into. I love this sort of stuff and I can't wait to do more. With that being said, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe button, hit that notification bell if you guys haven't already. We're with Passion everyone, I love you all, and I shall see you guys in the next video.